Today I'm going to share with you a few language learning myths that held me back in my language learning ambitions, so that hopefully you can avoid some of the mistakes that I made. One myth that I find really pervasive is that language learning is primarily about acquiring knowledge. In fact, learning a language is much more a skill than knowledge. As a speaker of a language, it's not just that you know kind of a long list of sentences in that language. It's that you know some rules and implicitly for how words fit together into sentences and how sounds fit together. And you're able to put those together in real time to be able to produce new novel sentences that maybe no one has ever said before in that language, as well as to be able to decode those sentences to be able to extract the meaning. This can have really big implications for how we work on a language. It's not just about learning about the language or gaining knowledge. You actually have to practice it. Now, for a person like me, I really love learning. But it's easy for me to just get in the cycle where I'm just always learning more and more about languages without ever actually taking the time to practice. So this is something really important. If you want to speak the language, you have to practice speaking the language. If you want to read the language, you have to practice reading the language. Brings us to the next language learning myth, which is that when we talk about language, writing is the main manifestation of language, and the spoken language is kind of a derivative of that. That is another myth. The way that linguists think about language is that the spoken language is primary and writing is a derivative of that. So this kind of turns the traditional paradigm on its head. Most of the languages spoken today are not written in any kind of normal, standardized, kind of normal, I mean in normal use, in extensive use, standardized way. And most languages throughout history were never written down at all. The spoken language is something that's unique to humans on this planet. Animals don't have that. Writing is a derivative of that. Some societies have writing, others don't. But all human societies have spoken language. So think about that. That our speech isn't just kind of a derivative or kind of a broken form of writing. Rather, the writing is kind of trying to imitate the complex things that we do when we're speaking. A third myth, and this is actually kind of a group of myths. There are a lot of myths about what linguists do and what the discipline of linguistics is about. So some people think that linguists are the ultimate grammar Nazis. Well, it's true that a lot of linguists, like myself, really do like grammar. We look at it through a rather different lens. Linguistics is the scientific study of language. So we like to look at languages from a scientific lens. That means not picking certain varieties or pronunciations or dialects or grammatical constructions as kind of preferred or better or correct. Linguists really don't really talk at all about what's correct and not. Instead, our focus is just looking how people speak. As a speaker of language, you help define what that language is. And linguists are just interested in studying how people actually speak rather than trying to come up with describing how they should speak. Kind of a related myth about linguistics is that linguistics is about learning lots of languages. And while linguists often really like languages, the discipline of linguistics is about studying linguistics from a scientific perspective. And you can do that just on your native language. You don't have to learn any other languages at all to be a linguist. Though I'd say a lot of linguists do know more than one language because they tend to like lots of languages. Just like you could be a veterinarian and know a lot about treating animal diseases. You might have pets, you might not. I'm guessing that a lot of veterinarians probably do have pets because they probably went into it because they really like animals. But they don't have to. It's kind of a separate tangential issue. Now, a fourth myth that I encounter a lot is this: I'm too old to learn a language. And I see this from young people, I see this from old people, I see a lot of people who think that they're too old to learn a language. And that's just not true. You can learn any language. Now, there are some differences between how we learn languages at different different phases of the lifespan. And this can be a little complicated, and this is an area that researchers don't completely agree. When we look at babies, they acquire the languages spoken around them without any real apparent effort and without being taught them. They can master even quite complicated grammatical constructions without ever having to have anyone explain them to them. And so there's something that seems kind of special going on with a kind of early stage. And so some people say that up to about puberty, you can just kind of acquire languages in this way. And then after that, that kind of the timer runs out and you're going to have to work a lot harder to learn a language. However, there's other people that say, no, it's not like there's some like biological cutoff. There's just lots of ways that older people are different than younger people. So if you look at babies, they have some real advantages to learning languages. There's just lots of ways that they are able to just take the language input around them and put that together into a grammatical system in ways that are difficult for adults to do. But as older children and adults, we have lots of kind of resources at our disposal that small children just don't. We can kind of plan and strategize, and we can learn and we can analyze particular constructions to really think critically about what's going on. And those are some really powerful and cognitive tools that we can apply to language learning. So whatever stage of the lifespan you're at, don't give up on language learning just because you're at that stage. In fact, when languages are introduced a little bit later in school, children actually tend to progress faster at the beginning because they just have a lot of skills already. Also, think about this. What babies do and small children from the age of 0 to 6 in acquiring their native language is absolutely incredible. But also think about this. If you had someone feeding you and doing all your laundry and taking care of all your basic physical needs, as well as spending lots of time kind of interacting with you in kind of a way that's appropriate and helpful and stimulates your own language learning, I bet you'd be pretty great at a language after 6 years too. So don't discount yourself because of your age. Whatever your age, you can learn any language.